So Mississippi, Louisiana, and Missouri actually have higher firearm death rates. Obviously, there's certain...
What about Chicago?
So I don't live in Chicago. It's not my primary area of research.
You don't have an opinion on that?
I think there's easy access to firearms combined with environmental conditions, lack of great education. There have actually been studies showing that when you green vacant lots and repair abandoned buildings in urban neighborhoods, you see decreases in gunshots, in violence, as well as in stress and depression in the neighborhoods around them.
No disrespect, Doc, but that sounds a lot like word salad to me.
You're about to watch Senator John Kennedy absolutely corner this Yale professor.
Let me ask you this. In September of this year, our New Mexico governor issued a public health emergency order, and she suspended the right to bear arms in Albuquerque and the surrounding county. Do you support that?
I do not. What I do support is the work that New Mexico has done
with... Do you support that?
No.
You don't? Okay. Let's see. During his first 2 years as the DA in Philadelphia, District Attorney Krasner and Loster dropped 47% of all the illegal firearms cases in the city. Do you agree with that?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm a physician and a public health professional. I can say that New Mexico has done amazing work in trying to address the suicide and partner violence.
I'm asking about Philadelphia.
I don't have an opinion.
The DA dropped 47% of all the illegal firearms cases. Did he do the right thing there?
I don't have an opinion. However, I will say that just as with fentanyl, the spread of illicit substances...
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm running out of time.
Understood.
The LA District Attorney, George Gascon, said that he would not prosecute any sentencing enhancements for guns or gang-related activity. Do you think he did the right thing?
Again, I am neither a lawyer nor a prosecutor.
You don't have an opinion on that?
I honestly don't know enough about it to have an opinion.
You don't think gangs should be prosecuted for having illegal guns?
I'm neither a lawyer nor a prosecutor, and that's not my area of research.
But yet you want to take guns away.
I've never said that I want to take guns away.
From law-abiding citizens.
I think that you are saying something that I've not said in my written or oral testimony, sir.
Okay. You equated gun deaths to heart disease in your opening statement.
Yes, sir.
Which is a greater public health problem? Gun deaths or heart disease?
So heart disease does kill more folks across the United States, largely in the end of their life.
About 700,000? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gun deaths about 50,000?
Correct.
Do you support outlawing fried foods?
I'm sorry. How does that relate to...
Because fried foods contribute to heart disease, don't they?
If you've been wondering why so many Americans are frustrated with elite academia and the so-called experts running public policy conversations, this exchange right here explains it perfectly. Senator John Kennedy walked into this hearing with simple, direct questions, not trick questions, not complicated legal theory, just common-sense questions that millions of ordinary Americans ask every single day. And what happened? The Yale professor could not give a straight answer. That's what stood out the most here. Every time Kennedy brought up real-world consequences of soft-on-crime policies, the response instantly turned into academic jargon deflection or "that's not my area." Kennedy asks about Chicago. Suddenly there's no opinion. He asks about prosecutors dropping illegal gun charges. No opinion. He asks about gang-related gun crimes not being prosecuted. No opinion. But somehow there's always a detailed explanation ready when it comes to blaming environmental conditions, abandoned buildings, vacant lots, or social factors. And look, nobody denies that poverty and broken neighborhoods can contribute to crime. Conservatives have talked about broken communities for decades, but what frustrates people is when accountability completely disappears from the conversation. That's the part Americans are tired of. Because regular people watching this hearing understand something very basic. If someone illegally possesses a firearm, joins a gang, commits violent crimes, or terrorizes neighborhoods, the answer cannot always be another sociology lecture. At some point, laws have to mean something. At some point, criminals have to face consequences. And Kennedy exposed the contradiction perfectly. The professor repeatedly tried to avoid taking positions on prosecutors refusing to enforce gun laws. Yet at the same time, much of the broader gun control movement constantly argues that law-abiding citizens need more restrictions. That disconnect is exactly why so many Americans no longer trust these policy debates. Think about the contradiction here. Law-abiding citizens go through background checks, follow regulations, store firearms responsibly, and obey the law. Meanwhile, in many major cities, repeat violent offenders cycle through the system over and over again with reduced charges, dropped prosecutions, or early release policies. Americans see that, they live with the consequences of that, and then they're told the real issue is vacant lots and greenery projects. Again, nobody saying communities shouldn't be improved. Cleaner neighborhoods are good, better education is good, strong families are good, economic opportunity is good. Conservatives support those things too, but pretending those factors replace criminal accountability is where the argument loses people. And Kennedy's style matters here too. A lot of politicians overcomplicate things. Kennedy doesn't. He strips arguments down to their core logic. That's why the fried foods moment hit so hard. The professor compared gun deaths to heart disease as a public health issue. Kennedy immediately followed the logic to its natural conclusion. If something causing deaths automatically justifies government bans, then should fried foods be outlawed too? Suddenly the framework didn't sound so convincing anymore. That's the power of simple questions. They force people to defend the actual implications of their arguments instead of hiding behind buzzwords and carefully crafted academic language. And honestly, this exchange represents a much bigger national divide right now. One side increasingly views nearly every issue through institutional theory, systemic explanations, and public health frameworks. The other side still believes individual responsibility, law enforcement, and constitutional rights matter. That clash is becoming central to American politics, especially after years of rising concerns about crime in major cities. Voters have watched progressive prosecutors experiment with softer enforcement policies, while violent crime spikes dominated headlines across the country. Even in cities where crime numbers later stabilized or declined somewhat, public trust had already been damaged. People remember the chaos. They remember businesses leaving downtown areas. They remember videos of smash-and-grab robberies. They remember repeat offenders getting arrested over and over again. And when politicians or academics appear unwilling to even criticize those policies directly, it reinforces the perception that ideological narratives matter more than public safety. And there's another important part of this conversation that rarely gets discussed honestly. The people most affected by rising violent crime are often working-class Americans living in these communities every single day. They're the ones hearing gunshots at night. They're the ones afraid to let their kids walk alone. They're the ones dealing with carjackings, robberies, and businesses shutting down. Yet many elite policy conversations happen inside universities, think tanks, or government offices far removed from the consequences. That gap matters. Because when ordinary Americans hear highly educated experts dodge basic questions about prosecuting illegal gun possession or gang crime, they start feeling like the people shaping these policies don't actually understand what life is like outside elite institutions. And politically, Democrats have struggled badly on this issue for years. Even many moderate voters who support some gun regulations still want aggressive prosecution of violent criminals. They still expect law enforcement to target repeat offenders. They still believe gang violence should be taken seriously. That's why Republicans have increasingly leaned into this issue. They understand public frustration over crime remains powerful, even when national media coverage shifts focus to other topics. And Kennedy knows exactly how to communicate that frustration in a way average viewers immediately understand. He doesn't sound like a consultant. He doesn't sound rehearsed. He sounds like someone asking obvious questions that ordinary people are already asking in their living rooms. That's why clips like this spread online so quickly. Not because of complicated policy detail, but because viewers instantly recognize the imbalance in the conversation. One side speaks plainly, the other side often sounds like it's avoiding the question. And whether people agree with Kennedy on everything or not, one thing is undeniable here. He asked direct questions that deserve direct answers. Instead, viewers got evasions, technicalities, and non-answers. That's why this clip resonated. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Kennedy expose the flaws in this argument, or do you think the professor had a point? Let me know below.